The Rebel Capitalist Show.
You said that real estate is booming, but I know you take a far more nuanced approach than that. So when you say it, I'm assuming there's some segments of the market that are not booming. Let's break it down a little further and kind of define which parts of the market are really booming and maybe which parts are crashing.
Yeah, good question. So when you had me on before and we talked about my pandemic investing course and so forth, I back in February postulated that people would leave cities and move to suburbia. Now that's like old news. Everybody's talking about it. But back in February, nobody was talking about it. Okay. So certainly in urban cores, people are leaving like crazy. I just read an article yesterday about how tenants in San Francisco have one thing that they haven't had in a long, long time, and it is leverage to negotiate with their landlords. Same is true with New York City. Same is true with any high density area. So people are fleeing density, not only because of the cerveza sickness and the fear of contracting a virus in being in close proximity to people in elevators and mass transit, but also those same exact places are saddled with civil unrest. And, their mayors, frankly, in my opinion, should be indicted and imprisoned for not doing their job and protecting the property and the livelihood and the safety of the good citizens in these places whose businesses are being destroyed, windows being broken, buildings burnt down. But they can't break it up because it's nothing more than a big Joe Biden campaign rally. But I hope you enjoy my snarkiness.
Yeah, so don't buy property in the Chaz zone, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think Chaz or Chad. They've changed the name of it a couple times, or Portland or New York or Philadelphia or any of those urban environments they're very risky. Here's another thing that's interesting, George. One of our team members, he lives in San Francisco, and he and his wife have a rent-controlled like Victorian.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard him on your podcast.
Yeah. Patrick is his name, and his wife's name is Robin. And so they rented this place in 1996, I think, or maybe 97, but in the late 90s, and they're paying, I think, $2,400 a month. Now that property has appreciated in value like crazy over the years. And it's probably worth like, I don't know, I think I asked him, he said it was worth like $2 million now.
Oh my gosh.
And they're still paying $2,400.
1% RV ratio.
Yeah, it's terrible for the owner. but here's the interesting thing that, government intervention always perverts the market. It distorts the market, and it's a terrible thing. But this is interesting because these insanely low artificial interest rates we have now are distorting the market, but they're going to distort it even worse in the future. And here's what I mean by that. All of the millions of people that have refinanced their homes and are continuing to refinance their homes or have purchased a new home and, they've got this 30-year mortgage at like 2.4% or 2.75%. It's insane. I mean, these rates are ridiculous. They're basically getting, George, the equivalent of a super cheap rent-controlled apartment. And this is one of the things that I think makes the housing market rather stable, because these tens of millions of people, they're just going to sit there and enjoy these ultra low payments.
Well, I'm following your line of thinking here. So it could prevent them from potentially selling in the future if interest rates go up, because then they'd have to sell and they have to get a new mortgage at a higher interest rate. Their purchasing power would go down. They'd be able to buy less house with the same income. So why sell? Is that your point?
Right. It's why sell, but it also gives them the ability to weather economic storms. Okay. And we all know there's a storm coming if it's not here already. Okay. It's just interesting as I put on my tinfoil hat, we had the repo market collapsing. They tried to hide that problem, which was a real symptom of a much bigger problem. Right.
Yeah.
And it portended economic collapse, and then we rolled right into COVID. And they had cover for massive money printing, stimulus, bailouts, et cetera, and all the, tyrannical stuff the government has done since then. And, but what they've given people that have purchased or refinanced a house is a giant gift of really a lot of staying power, that they can weather a storm because they've got like a bulletproof vest. Okay.
Yeah, but let's think that through.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure I've got some viewers right now that are saying, okay, well, it sounds like what Jason is saying is that the government accidentally distorted the market in a good way. And no, we're just looking at one. Yeah, it's right. There you go. Good for some. Let's think about the knock-on effects, because this keeps prices artificially high, which reduces the ability for people who are in lower income, or the millennials are getting out of college, the kids. Yeah. It reduces their ability to buy a home, which I would argue increases social unrest.
I agree. You are right.
So there's no free lunch. You distort the market, you benefit one group, and it's going to be at the cost of someone else.
It's George, what we are witnessing right now is the biggest wealth transfer in human history. I mean, it is insane. The chips are getting moved around the table, and wealth is being transferred. It's being transferred from lenders to borrowers, as it's been ever since we went off the gold standard in 1971, when Nixon finally cut the last tether to gold. And that wealth transfer has been occurring, and now we are seeing all kinds of new wealth transfers. And so what you just identified was certainly one of them. I don't want to forget to say something, by the way. As we were talking about migration trends a few minutes ago, what I think we're going to do is we're going to see this in phases. So people are leaving the urban areas, right? And rightfully so. They just don't offer much. They're overpriced. And so I think what we've witnessed now is phase one. And phase one is simply, take New York City as a great example. It's simply people leaving Manhattan or, somewhere in the city, right? And they're moving to other expensive areas, certainly the Hamptons, right? Expensive New Jersey areas, Connecticut. All these areas have picked up a lot of new movers from the city. But what I think is going to happen, and this is a prediction I've made, is that we're going to see phase two and even phase three and maybe phase four of this migration trend. Okay, now we've seen a little bit of it now. Nothing's all or nothing. It's just a generalization. But the next phase will be these people sitting in their expensive place in Greenwich, Connecticut, or the Hamptons, or San Jose, or Palo Alto, or whatever, right? Then the next step is they're going to say, hey, we moved here, honey, right? They're having this conversation, the spouse says, honey, we moved here, and, we got more house, and all I'm doing is having meetings on Zoom. Why don't we just move to Dallas and have no state income taxes, or Austin, or something like that, and that's going to be the phase two move, and so I think we're going to see a tremendous wealth effect where people with this massive amount of spending power, because they've come from these high equity expensive markets, and they're trading their equity. And what they're going to do is some of that extra money that they didn't need to spend on a house, where they liquidated their $2 or $3 million house and they bought a $600,000 or $800,000 house in a much less expensive city, they're going to look around and say, well, what else do I do now? Do I start a business with my extra money? Do I put it in the stock market? Do I buy crypto or gold, or buy more real estate and buy more investment properties, right? Or, maybe a second home. So it's going to be interesting to see those knock-on effects that happen there.